Okay, hello. This is a very big room for an intimate crowd, but we will do this. We will do this. The way we envision this is that this is going to be a combination of two-way conversation. One is companies who are innovating, they want to be secured and they want to attract your attention as a cyber industry. For those joining us online, think about the way you're connected to this and how you're connected back to these really cool innovative companies that are going to share their story. As I mentioned, the whole cyber innovation showcase started out of the Scottish Rites Hospital. We did in 2018-19 timeframe. I think the entire board came out and made an appeal for them to be heard. So we'll go through this in very quick succession. We have a combination of innovative tech companies or businesses that want to tell their story. And leader of that pack is, Knight Aerospace. We have the CEO, Bianca Rhodes, here telling her story. And then we'll go in quick succession with Elevate System, BridgeBits, Now Secure, ThreatMinder, Skyfi, and ClearForce. I will hand it over to, first, I think it's Catherine. If you can kick this off, this particular segment. But before we do, I'll have to, get your attention and be ready for some loud noise. I would typically ask of an audience to make that loud noise, but this time we have some technology setting this up. So, ready, Steve? How's that? Oh yeah.
When I tell you to
Okay. So in this, I think the way this is set up is we have someone from the industry talking about their story, and there is a industry advisory panel combination of leaders from the military, from the industry side. So I'll welcome first. I think everybody's here, as I can see. But let's first start with Knight Aerospace with Bianca coming up. All right. Bianca, it's such a great pleasure to have you. Thank you for joining us this evening. We are eager to hear your story.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, and thanks everybody for being here. It's exciting for me to have the opportunity to tell you about my company and our products. We've been in business for 30 years, but we've been at the port for 3 years, and we think that we're part of the new innovations team. So here we go, Knight Aerospace. Let me tell you a little bit about what we do. Every day, we transport wounded warriors across the globe on the back of cargo aircraft. Cargo aircraft was built for cargo. It was not built for people, much less patients. And what does that look like? Oh, I guess I should advance. It's really austere. This is on the back of a cargo aircraft that has no temperature control, no lighting. The equipment is usually packed on top of the patient on a little tray or hanging on the medical bed. They can't hear each other, so they have to wear headphones. They can't hear the patient for sure. And you can imagine how stressful this is on a long flight. Here's another situation. So everybody remembers New Orleans? The hospitals had no power. Now we have patients sitting on the ground, on the roofs, waiting for transportation to get them to other hospitals, or B, needing to be treated because they were so intensive that we couldn't even put them on an airplane to move them anywhere else. They could not be moved. It was really ugly, and it affected hundreds and hundreds of people. Another scenario, New York City. The middle of COVID, Remember, all the hospitals were overflowing with COVID patients, and now they were having to fly them out to surrounding cities and hospitals through a helicopter, one at a time. And we did this day in and day out, helicopters rotating people, getting them into these situations. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be this way. Like, we have solutions, and Knight's Aerospace has a great solution. We provide mobile medical solutions. These are hospital rooms that go on the back of cargo aircraft. This unit that you're looking at here today is a biocontainment unit that we delivered to the Royal Canadian Air Force in the middle of COVID. It was used to transport soldiers and to repatriate citizens, to move people all around the world and throughout the country that were infected. This was at the beginning when people did not know what COVID really was. They've been using this so successfully now that COVID is kind of over. They've been using it for other things. They've been using it to transport vaccines, and they've been using it for other kinds of patients, illnesses and other injuries. Canada is big, so they have to take a C-130 and land it in very remote areas and pick up patients and bring them to cities and hospitals in cities. They've loved this product. We are now building their second one. They have said, we will never put a patient on the floor of a cargo aircraft again. It's important stuff. And as you can see, this is what happens. It rolls onto the cargo aircraft and it locks into the aircraft. We build all of our products to the exact same standards as the aircraft, so they're all airworthy. These units are safe for people to be inside of them during all phases of flight. We're the only company in the world that can make that claim, and we've been doing it for over 30 years. What does it look like inside? It looks like a hospital room. It's wonderful. It has lighting, it has temperature control, it has heating and air conditioning. It has the ability to take all of the equipment off the patient and put it on the wall like you would do in a hospital. It has the ability for us to pull the bed out to the middle of the room so that caregivers have full access to the patient. Believe it or not, this doesn't happen on the back of cargo aircraft. They're usually on the side of the aircraft and everybody has to crowd up on one side of the patient. And it's not very conducive to medical care. It has vibration control, sound dampening, all of those things so that we can operate just like you would be in a hospital room. It has hot water. It has a lavatory. It has all of these things that you would expect to find in a hospital room. And the best part is, right now, for us to deploy medical assets anywhere in the world, we have to bring them to a training center where they have to train on a simulator because they're going from a hospital room to the back of a cargo aircraft. Very austere. Now, they're going from a hospital room to something that looks like a hospital room. That means that we can deploy assets anywhere in the world very rapidly without any training. And how do we get these things around? We can sling them on helicopters. We can move them with forklifts. We can move them on trucks. We can operate on air, land, and sea. When the unit is not flying in an aircraft, it can be taken off and just set up with a generator, because the only thing we take off the aircraft is power. And now you have a full ICU that you can pre-position anywhere in the world. So when you think about the continent of Africa, when you think about South America, these places that are really remote and don't have these kinds of facilities, this is a remote clinic, this is a remote ICU. And now with telemedicine, this is super functional. So what could those scenarios really have looked like? So the soldiers, now they could be in a hospital room. Think about our burn soldiers that come from our hospitals in Germany, right here to San Antonio, to BAMC, which is the biggest burn center in the country. 16-hour flight on the back of a cargo aircraft. How stressful that has to be and how debilitating that has to be for the medical outcome. We can make that very, very different now. It doesn't have to be that way. What about New Orleans? We could have slung these ICUs to the roof of the hospitals. Now we would have immediately been able to treat those patients as though they were in a functional ICU. And in most cases, if they needed to be transported because they were that critical, we wouldn't have had to transport them because we could just keep treating them in these hospital rooms that we could have put very easily on roofs. New York, another whole different scenario. Instead of moving patients one at a time, we could have moved 20 at a time. The cost of operating a helicopter, a medical helicopter, is about $30,000 an hour. It's about the same for a cargo aircraft. So imagine what goes into loading one patient, the personnel that's required, treating them in the air, offloading them at the receiving hospital, what's required there. You're doing it one at a time. Now we could have done 20. The time that would have saved, the effectiveness for those people that needed to be in a medical setting, and obviously the money, because we wouldn't have had to do one at a time. We could have done 20 at a time. And I'll leave you with one other story. When President Obama visited Cuba, there was not a hospital to the standards that we're used to in the United States and Cuba. So what we did is we took a C-17 and we put a medical bed in the back and we tented it with shower curtains. And we said, if he gets injured or ill, we've got a way to treat him. We can do better than that. We can do better than that. This is the United States of America, and we can do better than that. And so when I think about the next pandemic, we learned a lot through COVID-19. When I think about the next conflict, we're learning a lot through Russia, Ukraine. We cannot do it with the same equipment set that we've been using since before Vietnam. It doesn't have to be this way, and Knight Aerospace has a better solution. Thank you very much.
Up next, we have Elevate Systems to tell their story. And I hope the advisory team here is taking copious notes to come back and probably share with us their unique, ideas about how can we help. So Elevate Systems, I think Scott's here to talk about that. So come on upstairs.
There we go. Thank you very much. Welcome to San Antonio, those of you that are not from here. We welcome you to this beautiful innovation center that the Port San Antonio has put together. I'm going to get my charts up here. My name is Scott Gray. I'm the president of a company called Elevate Systems, based here in San Antonio. I started my career a long time ago, about 3,000 feet that way, on an Air Force base a number of years ago. And we decided to start an innovative company specializing in obsolescence sustainment for weapon systems and things like that. There we go. Well, we're almost there. It's here, so I guess I can turn this around and show it to you. So our focus is on the warfighter. Innovation for the warfighter, innovation for weapon systems, obsolescence sustainment and support, and things like that, by providing solutions to what we call legacy systems. We have, as we know, the really old fleets of our bombers, fighters, cargo, and everything. So we help keep those going so that Bianca's company can put their roll-on and roll-off modules on there. Oh, we're still not there yet. Okay. Well, what I was going to tell you about is we have engineering capabilities. We basically reverse engineer assets. That's why they asked me to be here today, because we are not a manufacturing firm at all. We're a design firm. So what that means is normally the DoD, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, will hand us an asset they can't buy, say on a B-52 from 1957. And it's, oh, thank goodness, we're there. So I do better when oops, is that me doing that? Oh, I'm sorry about that. There we go. All right, let me start by thanking my friends at the Capital Factory, the Port, certainly the Chamber of Commerce and Techport SA here, and the Cyber Future Foundation. for allowing us to come up and talk for a few minutes. If you haven't been down to the end of the building, the San Antonio Museum of Science and Technology is unbelievable. I don't say that just because I'm on their board. It's unbelievable. We have the David Monroe, who invented the cell phone camera. We have the first cell phone camera ever made in the center down there. We also have the first personal computer ever manufactured in the world right down here in our system. Here we go. All right, so these are, I'm not going to read this to you. These are the things that our dynamic small business specializes in, and we're a very unique blend of mechanical, electrical, and computer engineering. And you'll see that we, again, are very weapon system centric. I don't expect you to read that, certainly an eye chart, but every system you see on there, we either have supported or are currently supporting today as an unbiased third party supporting the Department of Defense. And what that really means is that we're agnostic to who manufactures the parts in the end. We go identify and find. This is a very cool project on the KC-135. This is an aluminum, well, it's exciting to us, maybe not to everybody, but it's an aluminum housing that goes into a fan duct actuator. On the far left, you can see the original asset. Well, they don't have the data. They can't call anybody to build this for them. So we take it to our lab here in San Antonio. We reverse engineer it, and then we create the 3D data needed for additive manufacturing. So we're able to then go to a nylon, which we can do here, and then metal additive manufacturing is an expensive thing to do. So we outsource the metal additive manufacturing piece. But if you look at the part, the second from the right, that is an aluminum printed fan duct actuator housing, printed. And you'll notice it has a lot of supports on it because it has to. You can't print on nothing. You have to have something to print on, and then we machine it or have it machined, and you'll see the final part. Matter of fact, this will be on a bench test at Tinker Air Force Base next Wednesday to see if it works, which it will. And then the next step will be to get air certification to put it on an aircraft. The cool thing about this is you're all in for 2 of these at about $3,000 with metal additive manufacturing, but guess what? No tooling. None of the traditional tooling, we call that subtractive manufacturing. They don't have to do that at all. And then at the end of it, we hand all that data, 100% of it, to our customers. We obviously do not work for OEMs. We work for the DoD in this case, so they can sustain that system for the rest of its life. This is one we're doing right now on the B-2 bomber. Everyone knows that's done by a couple other very large companies, and they need these heat exchangers to be recored. We have B-2s that cannot fly today because they don't have these heat exchangers. So our customer at the Air Force called the OEM and said, we need this now, and they said, we'll do it in 3 to 5 years, 25 million, maybe $30 million. So our little tiny company proposed that we could do it in 18 months or less for $7 million. And guess what? We got awarded 2 contracts, one at about $4 million each, and we can't make the 18-month delivery. We're gonna make it at about 14 months. So you can imagine the Air Force is very, very happy about this. This is the one we did on the B-52 where we took an impeller, 1957 on the far left there, and you can see on the far right is the only polymer that's approved for airworthiness in the DoD. It's printed in Ultem 9085, chemical and heat resistant. So it's got about a 400-degree flash point. If we were to recreate the impeller you see on the left side there, that'd be about $10,000, does not include engineering. And then we did an aluminum printed one. We had it printed for us at about $3,000. Today, the Air Force pays $280 each for these impellers. It's a tremendous cost savings. So the next one is we have it looks pretty benign. It's a bomb loader. This is a munitions handling unit compressor out at Warner Robins Air Force Base in Georgia. So they send these to us to do what we call remanufacturing. We're not a manufacturer really, but we tear it down. We do the reverse engineering where we have to. When you can't find commercially available items, no problem. We just reverse engineer. We use additive manufacturing, 3D printing. So you can see the part that we had 3D printed in metal, and we put it onto the system, send it out there. So these airmen have no idea that they have 3D printed parts helping them load bombs today. This is our newest effort. This is a KC-135. How many of these are there? There's 800, 900 KC-135s in the fleet. They need a fuel flow transmitter, 35-year-old technology. So again, the OEM in this case is not acceptable to the military, so they've handed us this asset. We're going to use additive manufacturing. We partnered with a great little company here called Southwest Research Institute. Most people from here are very, very familiar with Southwest Research Institute because we're not propulsion experts. And the reason I have this up here is because this is the first time since our business has been around that in our scope statement, it says we will use metal additive manufacturing from the Department of Defense. That's a big deal. For those of you that do DoD work and dealing with engineers in the government, that's a big deal. Here's another one we did on the Chinook CH-47 down at Corpus Christi Army Depot, Army Futures Command. They needed to install a training antenna temporarily so they could do, it's like laser tag back and forth with the pilots. And they told us we had to install a new antenna, but we could not drill a hole into the aircraft. Kind of hard to do. However, we found a jack pad point up underneath the Chinook that you unscrewed it and it's hollow, goes up inside. We have a cable, audio cable had to go inside. Well, the cool thing about that, the green nylon that you see there, that cost us about $200 to print, and you can actually do a fit check with the nylon printed parts. That's really cool because you're not spending any money on traditional subtractive manufacturing at that point. We just delivered 28 kits of this it's called PEO Stry. And guess what? They have 100% of the data. They have non-proprietary, unlimited, unrestricted rights to it forever. This is digital twin. That's the buzzword in our community today in obsolescence and sustainment. So this is a Apache helicopter. It's a mass base support. So we do the 2D to 3D conversion, and then we do the stress analysis for engineering substantiation so that the Army in this case can do I call it the other additive. It's called cold spray, where you machine down the bad, you cold spray it with supersonic metal powder that you blast at the substrate, and then it builds it back up. Then you machine it back down again to the original OEM specifications. And we've done this on a couple of systems. Here's on the Black Hawk as well, a magnesium sump housing. It's huge. Most people, when you're doing metal work, understand it in a hot environment. This is exactly opposite. It's in a cold environment. So guess what? We can mix metal when you're doing it in a cold environment. Small Business Innovative Research. This is an effort to basically take old PDF data, drawings, Mylar, sepias, C4 TIFF formats, and be able to extract them, extract the metadata off of them, and then be able to turn them from a 2D flat file into a 2D digital file. This is the before, that's the after. Again, people that are in the manufacturing business see that and they go, holy moly, how are we ever, and can we make it so we can change the drawing? We're doing it right now. It's unbelievable. It's artificial intelligence, machine learning, computer vision, and human intervention. And we're on a phase 2 with Tinker Air Force Base right now. This is a game changer for the world. Who doesn't deal with drawings? Everybody deals with drawings. This is another SBIR we're doing on the E-3 AWACS aircraft. They want to put iPads onto the yokes and to the left and right of the pilot and the co-pilot. But they have a lot of restrictions, as you can imagine, inside of an E-3 AWACS cockpit. You cannot have wireless transmission of data. So what do? We call the world leader, a company called Apario, who has a Stratus ADS-B receiver. All private pilots know what this is. And we're putting it into the aircraft, into the cockpit, but we're not going to have any wireless transmission of data. We're custom designing the iPad holders, so they will hold the Stratus device and a powering device, and we meet the security intent that the Air Force requires. Another SBIR, Small Business Innovative Research, additive manufacturing. These pins that you see, these plastic pins, they're about as big as this microphone I'm holding. They're getting charged $1,100. They're getting charged $600, and they insert them into the landing gear systems for lubrication reasons. We at this moment are converting the 2D to full up 3D, and then we're going to use 3D resin printing for these assets, and we're going to qualify a new source of supply. And the new source of supply we're qualifying is the Air Force themselves. They have an organic center at Tinker and at Hill Air Force Base in Warner Robins called the Rapid Center. When we're done, they'll be able to print on demand 22 part numbers and insert them right into the aircraft at a cost of in the tens of dollars. The tens of dollars. It's just crazy. This will blow your mind. Our first STTR with United States Space Force. We just won this recently, and guess what we're going to do? We're going to go into space. We're developing a concept for this to go into space and be able to acquire metal trash that's floating around the Earth, recycle it in space into metal powder, then use it for MEM, metal additive manufacturing in space, without having to come back down to the Earth. We'll be able to print assets that are go to the moon or go to the ISS or whatever it's going to be. That's pretty mind-blowing. And let's see here. We also do like Shark Tank type stuff. So this was right here in San Antonio. A couple of guys came up with a great idea to have a poor man's Oculus, is what we call it. Merge virtual reality, Merge VR. We did all of the design. We did all of the prototyping and everything for these guys. They're sitting downtown right now at Geekdom, one of our startup accelerators here. I think they got about 10 million in round A funding. Pretty cool that we were able to help them. And here's another one from the Oilfield Services Company. Your Yetis keep getting stolen. People don't like that. So if you can afford a Yeti, you can afford to deny lock. We don't own the intellectual property, but we have created for our customer a locking system that you put into the back of your truck or your vehicle. They guarantee that if it's ever stolen, that they'll get you a new Yeti and a new lock. 6 years, 7 years now we've been doing this. Never has a single Yeti or Orca or high-end cooler been stolen. It's crazy cool. That's everything I have to say. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I mean, now you know, I think you already do, but I think it's just reinforcing, why we need to pay attention, the digital twins, the reproduction of all the physical assets into digital. Well, I think this is followed by another really cool, amazing technology partners that we have worked with John and Foster joining us here. It's BridgeBits. And with BridgeBits, we have a attack surface management and over, kind of automating the pace of penetration testing to an area where we can apply to a small business and a scale. So those two come together. John, why don't you come up while the presentation is getting loaded, and probably you can start introducing the company. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Microphone there. Get this microphone working. All right. Okay, good evening. John and I are going to tell you today about our company, BridgeBits. We're going to give you a quick overview. We're going to start with a quick overview of ourselves. John and I were the co-founders of the company. We come from a 15 to 17-year career in the Department of Defense, the Department of the Navy, National Security Agency. John has also spent time at Microsoft, and our background is illustrated here, but let's go ahead and that's where we are coming from. Let's get into the problem that we are solving.
So there was a time when cyber attacks were focused primarily on governments and the largest companies in the world. And I think we all know that time is well behind us now, as financially motivated attackers are looking to get better return on investment, frankly, of their time and attacks. They're moving to smaller and smaller businesses that really can't keep up with the constantly evolving cyber landscape. So to try to offset some of those risks, these companies are turning to cyber insurers to try to offload that risk to others. But these cyber insurance companies are having a very difficult time really knowing and seeing what the cyber risk is in this part of the market. And because of that, they're forced to increase premiums to a point where most small, medium-sized businesses just can't afford them anymore. So the core problem at the crux of this that we're focused on is a lack of visibility in cyber risk in small, medium-sized enterprises at the rigor and scalability that we need to solve.
And so at the core of our business, we are scaling cyber risk discovery and rating solutions. Some might call it its automated penetration testing as a service, but what we really want to focus today on is showing you how it actually is so much more than that.
So we'll start with how our assessment process works. So first, it follows the same process, very similar to how attackers will go about identifying and attacking really any company. So we start with discovering their attack surface, finding where they are on the internet. Next, moving to scanning and really enumerating that attack surface, looking for opportunities. So these opportunities we call threat vectors, a place where there's an opening or an opportunity in cyberspace paired with a capability that attacker would have to compromise them. We call that a threat vector. And that's really the basis that we use to determine the risk of any organization. Then what makes us truly unique is we take the next few steps to validate that that threat vector exists, to reduce false positives, and then with permission and authorization of the companies, we go to the next steps of testing those threat vectors just like an attacker would. So we know if A, threat vector really exists and is severe, or B, if they have controls behind it that reduces that risk. And we boil all these results down to what's called a breach risk score. So you don't need a large IT team or PhDs to understand and really know where your risks are.
So now you understand a little bit of the technology we're using and some of the basics of how we're delivering our services. What I want to focus on is this slide here because it gets to some of the things we've talked about during the Cyber Future Summit. In our model, you're going to see us focus on a business case, not a security case, and aligning incentives. So we're familiar with this right now. We, like many cybersecurity providers or people that are helping with risk, we are out trying to help individual businesses, small to medium enterprises, large enterprises, but also small and medium-sized businesses, SMBs. But many of us have been right here. And what's a major challenge right here? You can take the horse, you can lead the horse to water, they're just not drinking the water. Why is that? This is what I want to foot stomp because this is almost a bigger problem than when we solved continuous automated penetration testing as a service. So how do you do that? Why are they not drinking the water? The answer is that they are holding and accepting the risk. They may even say it that way. They say, I accept the risk. Now, maybe they're not fully informed, but they are holding the risk. The opportunity is to reach these companies when they start to transfer that risk. And when do we see them transferring the risk? There are two main cases. The first is during insurance. Of course, we see a lot of companies over the last decade buying cyber insurance. But for those that are familiar with what's going on in insurance, that there are still challenges we meet. But when they transfer that risk, now we have an opportunity through the insurance company to require that the SMB carry things like we do, continuous penetration testing as a service, continuous risk monitoring. And we know that once the SMB sees their risk, they finally know what they're up against. The dark room has now been illuminated, and now they can face what's in front of them. And when they see it, we see their risk decline. When cyber insurance requires it of the company, this also allows the company to negotiate back in a reverse auction to the insurance company. This is a business case you can sell to an SMB. I'm not coming to you with a security case, SMB. I'm coming to you with a business case because I'm going to help you negotiate your rates with the insurance, who you've already decided you need to transfer the risk. Where's the second place? Another place, at least, that we see risk transferring. Managed service providers or managed security service providers specifically. Many companies are using these companies to help them with their IT needs. A lot of those companies are now needing to provide their security needs as well, and many of these managed service providers have a responsibility to deliver on service level agreements and deliver those systems to the SMB, to the client, deliver them uncompromised and keep them safe, okay? So Maybe the business owner didn't realize they've just done this, but they have just started to transfer the risk onto the MSP. So now there's an opportunity to have that business drink the water. So what we can do, how we execute this is we provide this to managed security providers as a way to make sure that they are delivering on their promises to their client, and then also allowing those managed security providers to also help with a reverse auction to insurance. So now we've made a double business case, both to the end business who we really want to help, but then also to that managed service provider. Now, you've heard our technology, you've heard what we believe is the most important way to make a business case to secure the nation, to secure critical infrastructure. When you have this, you're able to answer two questions like we are. The first is, people want to know, hey, what is the cyber risk of other organizations? And the second is, what is your cyber risk? I have two pictures on the left here. The first is a study we completed this year where we looked at the energy sector, which is part of course, critical infrastructure, and we evaluated the risk landscape of those. Our technology and our methods allow us to do that. At the top there, you see all 50 states. We are currently engaged in a study of all 50 states and some local governments to do just that. And that is enabled by the technology and the business case that we are promoting.
So we'll go through really quickly just how the solution works. Put yourself in the shoes of a large enterprise needing to manage and measure the risk of many SMBs, whether they're subsidiaries, vendors, supply chain members, et cetera, or a cyber insurance carrier. So first, you add the companies with just their name and website. That's really all you need. Second, you get their initial results of their cyber risk from an attacker's perspective. And third, if you see that their risks are maybe not at the level that you want them to be, you can reach out to that company through our platform and have them either add more infrastructure or authorize testing. Maybe it's not as bad as it seems to be from the surface, so let us go in and test it for them so you know for sure. For individual businesses, they'll get an invitation to come onto the platform. They can add any additional cloud infrastructure or IP space that they have. They'll authorize testing, and then they'll be able to monitor and share their results. So every week, every month, every quarter, the periodicity they want, they get a new, fresh penetration test from an attacker's perspective. And we built this with SMBs in mind, and we've been having great results in not only letting them understand the results, but keep them coming back to stay on top of their cyber risks. So for the customers that have come onto the platform, over 90% come back and pay for multiple subscriptions, and about 73% of the users are active users, so they're on many times throughout the month. And our both revenue and customer growth is growing, and we're looking forward to continue that growth.
So we are finally allowing the horses to drink the water, or help them drink the water, and we hope to have more conversations with you. Thank you.
Will do.
Val, can I ask a quick question? John Foster, excellent presentation. Question, they haven't drunk the water yet. How do you convince the clients that your risk assessment is accurate?
Well, Bob, the first thing I would say is get any risk assessment first. Even if it's not mine, get a risk assessment. You have to start illuminating the darkness that you are in right now. Then you can make sure that your risk assessment is valid. Specifically, we have experience in quantifying risk from some time we've done on Wall Street. We believe very, very strongly that when you quantify that risk, it must be comparable. And so, for example, in our cases, we're able to convince them by helping them understand we are compatible with things like CVSS from the National Vulnerability Database, and it's comparable, and the mathematics behind it, we get their mathematicians in the room, we show them, they say, okay, I'm convinced.
Well, good deal. Thank you both, Foster, John. We have seen you firsthand, and then hopefully, here people see that too. Next up, I'm going to invite Alan Snyder to come up, talk about Now Secure. This is a organization, a business that's been I've been working with, in my past year as well, with well as at EY, and now, of course, looking forward to see how this is growing. So, take it away, Alan.
All right, well, let's have some fun with mobile apps. So question. How many of you ever used a mobile app? In the last 2 minutes, right? So they're pretty critical to everything that we do. They're pretty critical, and they're becoming more so, and you're gonna see that with 5G. So my goal today, there's no possible way I can tell you everything about the company and what we're doing. What I can do is give you enough information to get you interested to say, tell me more later after this. And that's my goal today. So first things you need to know, if you look at the mobile app ecosystem and you look at, say, a banking, so web banking versus mobile banking, what you're gonna find is 70% of that traffic is now going over the mobile app, not the web app. And that is increasing because the demographics show that the farther below the age of 30 you are, the more likely not just to be mobile, but to be mobile only. So every year, mobile picks up another 1 to 2 percentage points. So that's the first thing, is that's where the traffic is, that's where the revenue is, that's also where the attackers are, right? Because they're paying attention to it. Okay, here's the dark side. Here's the piece why this matters. You need to pay attention to this. When we look at the data, and this is our analysis looking at the apps in the public stores, plus our private analysis, what we see is 85% of apps have a critical vulnerability. 70% of apps are leaking your personal information and private data. So clearly there is an issue that needs to be solved in mobile AppSec, right? And this is not the developer woke up and said, boy, I really want to build a terrible app. They don't have the data and telemetry they need. They don't have the training they need to know how to build them correctly. And therefore, it is a huge attack surface, and it's getting larger, right? And what I want you to do when you walk away from this is every time you use a mobile app, ask yourself, how do you know that app is secure? Right? Do you trust the vendor? How do you know they know that it's secure? Okay. So there's a couple mobile apps just to give you a sense of that, right? You may not have known it, but some of these apps that you probably have used or used, all have already been breached. And they fixed it. And again, if you look at the data that I just gave you, I guarantee you there's a lot of breaches that are occurring right now. You just don't have the telemetry to see it and to know it. So now, here's what Now Secure does. And this is where our innovation allows others to innovate, right? What we have done is figured out how to go and to automatically test mobile apps and actually run them and exercise the app on a real device. So what that allows the customer to do is when they're building an app, they can do automated testing directly in the development process the same way they do functional testing. Now, here's what's important. The way it's done today is it's done by an individual doing a pen test on a device. Typically takes 2 weeks. They typically do one a year, and it typically costs $20,000. For half that price, we can do it unlimited automation in the development process every single time, and we can do it in 15 minutes. That then speeds the time to market. It also drives down the cost, so that means they're more likely to actually go do it and use the security because it is cost effective and it's fast. Now, what's also interesting, because the way our tech works, we can also do this for the supply chain. So we can go out and look at every app in the public stores, and I can tell you whether that app is or is not secure, whether it has components and libraries, so software bill of materials, all of those things. We know all about the app because we've done the security analysis. We understand the traffic. We know where your data is going. Is your data staying in the country? Is it going to another country? How is it being used? What amount of data is being exfilled? So all of that happens very quickly. There's some more resources. What I'd encourage folks, go look at the Now Secure website. We've got a lot of things out there, whether it be free training. We've actually got some of our public data, the risk tracker. So you can go look at different industry groups and see how well do they fare. And you can also see where do they send your data, right? How much of it stays in the US, how much of it goes to Russia, how much of it goes to China or other countries, right? Nothing wrong with that, but you as a consumer ought to know where your app data is going. And with that, I will take questions or I'll hand it over to the next. All right.
Thank you, Alan. That's a good time. So the next up is going to be Brian Zadie from ThreatMinder. Brian, please come up on.
Hello? Hello, everybody. You guys still awake? In the back they are. My name is Brian Zadie. I'm the founder of ThreatMinder. And I just have a quick question for everybody. Who in here does business with small and mid-sized businesses? Who are some of those vendors that you do? And a question for you. Now, we've been talking a lot about cybersecurity and risk on your network, cybersecurity and risk for your business. How many of you are aware of all the risk profiles for your vendors and for your suppliers? How many people are tracking all of the different bits of information and the risk profiles for your customers? Did you know that 94% of small and mid-sized businesses that are attacked by ransomware are out of business within 2 years? I mean, think about that. If some of your vendors and suppliers, some of your customers, so maybe you're a government institution, maybe you're a financial institution, if a small and mid-sized business gets attacked, they're out of business. Do you know that? Do you have any idea that this is happening to your customer base, to your vendor base, to your supplier base? One of the biggest problems across risk profiles for organizations and entities is that typically we only know a small bit of information about those entities. It might be a person that works with you for insider threat. It might be a contractor, a vendor, a supplier. It could be a large organization. There's only so much info. That leaves 80, 90% of the overall risk profile for an organization to be unknown by you, which is really hard, right? You fundamentally don't understand what's going on with your customer base, your entity base, or your vendors, your providers, and suppliers. So what do we do, just really quickly? We're kind of AI-based analytics for decisioning. Cross-functional data. What does that really mean? We have a couple core use cases of onboarding, continuous evaluation, use cases of operational monitoring, and also use case of investigations. What does that mean? We take our data, we take data that you have, we take data that Now Secure or BreachBits might have, we'll suck it in and we'll analyze that data from multiple different risk profiles. We'll allow you to have customized risk profiles. What's the most important thing to you? Is it cyber risk? Is it insider risk? Is it location risk? It might be financial or identity risk. We have the analytics in the back end that allows you to fully customize those risk profiles and then tie that data together so you can really truly understand where the risk is coming from. We're not here to supplant a BreachBits. We're not here to supplant a Now Secure. We're here to work with them. We're here to work with your IT systems. Do you know what IP addresses are attacking you? If you do, great, kick it over to us. We'll analyze it and tie it in with additional digital types of data. So what are digital types of data? It can be social media information, open internet. It can be cyber risk, it can be ransomware groups, extremist groups. It really doesn't matter. So when we consider risk, we kind of view risk as an overarching risk across all these different mechanisms. If you just look at one profile, one risk profile, you're missing the entire picture. What are some use cases? I talked about them. Go through these. Are there reputational risks? Do you have a vendor in your customer base that just got purchased by some group you didn't want to have purchased on? Who's the ultimate business owner? We have things, tell me if the business is still compliant. Maybe they're doing something when you onboarded them. How many of you have filled out the InfoSec information? And then 2 years later, it's still the same InfoSec information. We're here to help you in those use cases. We do it across the board. Our data, your data, digital data, it doesn't really matter to us where the data comes from. We're here to allow you to customize those risk profiles across those areas. That's our business. Thank you, guys.
How do you normalize the data? It's coming in from different sources.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we bring the data in via multiple things. So our expertise is in the analytics and the data normalization. We'll bring it in via API, web services, webhooks. We'll bring it in via CSV, via secure FTP. Some folks are kind of old school and they don't want to integrate APIs. Rather, they'll give us batch processing. So we'll take that data and we'll do the normalization of it. And then it's in the system. There's a whole ability for us to customize all that risk. So you might have IP stuff, and then you have social media. Like, I don't care about social media. I care about local crime and IP and this and that. You decide. So you're not relying on us to tell you what's risky. You're creating that for yourself. And the normalization and analytics of that data is really key.
Okay, looks like this works. Next up, we have Elisa from Skyfi. Honestly, I got to know about Skyfi a few days back, and I'm really excited to see what they bring in this. They're also a portfolio partner within the Capital Factory, I believe. And let's hear it from Elisa.
Thank you, thank you. So like he said, my name is Elisa Lambert. I'm the Business Development Manager at Skyfi. My background is actually in infrastructure. I'm a civil engineer by trade and sort of transitioned from a chemist to a civil engineer and now leading the business development efforts at Skyfi. So if you haven't heard of Skyfi, you know, So if you haven't heard of Skyfi, you're missing out, but I'm here to tell you a little bit more about Skyfi. So it seems like I need to pair with Now Secure and others because Skyfi is a customer-focused, user-friendly app that enables anyone, regardless of your GIS experience, to access Earth observation data. So when I say Earth observation data, when I started this role, I also didn't know what Earth observation data was. So it's just satellite imagery and aerial imagery. So we allow our users to access satellite imagery and aerial imagery. And I like to think of Skyfi like an ecosystem of services. So think of like an Uber, an Airbnb, where they don't own the cars and they don't own the homes, but they provide the product and service. So that's what Skyfi is. We don't own the satellites, we don't own the planes, but we provide imagery from the satellites on our platform. So this is my first CFF event, so hopefully it's not my last, but thank you guys for allowing me to be here today. And before I get into my presentation, we'll go into a quick little clip before I ramble on. And hopefully it'll work. And if it doesn't, it's fine. I just have to talk more.
Mission sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
So Skyfi supplies data, analytics, and storage. So most of you are probably familiar with the Google Earth and the Google Maps for providing satellite imagery, but most Google Earth and Google Maps imagery is a year, 2 years, sometimes 10 years old. So Skyfi provides up-to-date satellite aerial imagery. We even have balloon providers on our platform as well. And we also provide analytics and a storage solution as well. So Skyfi is unlocking Earth observation data. So most commercial satellite providers like Maxar, Airbus, Planet haven't really created an easy to use app or value-added products that allow users like myself or yourself to access satellite imagery. So usually if you're going to buy satellite imagery from a big provider like Maxar, you're gonna have to talk to a sales team and wait for the sales team to get back to you, which takes 2 to 3 weeks, and by then you might not even need the image. So Skyfi, the process completely automated from start to finish. So the purchase of the imagery to the delivery of the imagery is completely automated. So basically you have a satellite in the palm of your hands, which is really exciting. So at Skyfi, we understand that just providing raw data and imagery really isn't sufficient enough to solve the world's most complex problems. So we partner with the best-in-class analytical providers to provide analytics on our platform as well. So whether you're trying to do object detection, change detection, measure a runway, measure your house, we provide those analytical tools. And we're just getting started. So we also understand that when you have data, you have images, you have analytical tools on top of that, you need a storage solution. So we're creating Skyfi Drive, which will allow you to store all that data in one place. So some of the markets we serve. So whether you're a farmer, looking for your crop yields, environmentalist trying to fight famine, you're in construction, looking to monitor a construction site, you're our founder who uses satellite imagery and trading purposes, or you're just looking to see your house from space. Skyfi allows you to do all of that and more. And so Skyfi has two versions. So we have our web portal, which is shown here. So of course I had to put San Antonio in there, home of the Spurs. Even though I'm from Houston, I'm supporting the Astros, but home of the Spurs. So we have a web portal. We also have a mobile app. So this is a little glimpse of our mobile app. So for our mobile app, you'll be able to go in, search your area of interest. You'll also be able to choose what sensors you want, whether it's hyperspectral, SAR, which SAR imagery cuts through cloud. So if you're looking in areas like rainforest, that would be a good sensor for you to use. And then daytime optical, and then also nighttime. You'll also be able to select your resolution, whether it's high, medium, very high, and also you'll be able to task a satellite. So when I say task a satellite, you can tell one of our satellite providers on the day and time of your choosing when you would want the image. So you'll be able to go into our app, choose a date range, choose the resolution you want, and choose the cloud cover. And so with Skyfi, which is different from many other apps, is everything is transparent about Skyfi. The pricing is upfront. You'll know upfront how much you're going to pay. You'll be able to check out and be able to have the image delivered to your card if it's an existing or archived imagery in a matter of minutes. And so some of our accomplishments to date, so we just finished our seed round, so we raised $10 million in funding. We're in the midst of our beta testing, which is really exciting. We have about 300 users so far, and they're providing us a lot of great insights and feedback, which is really exciting. And we're further building our analytical and partner network, which is really important to us. And so here are some of our partners now. Like I said, these are aerial providers, satellite providers, aerial in the sense of airplanes, balloons, and we're rapidly growing our partner network. Currently, with all of our partners, we have about 70 plus satellites on our network. We just signed a few more partners last week, so that brings our total to around 120 satellites on our platform. And that's it. My name is Ilisa Lambert. I'm the Business Development Manager at Skyfi.
I've got a question. Great product, great partners. Are your partners also helping you with marketing and business development? How do your customers find you?
So our partners are most definitely helping us, and our partners are using us because they are funneling this new market. So most of our partners focus on the defense industry. So Maxar, Airbus, Planet, they're probably 85 to 90% defense. So we're kind of opening this new commercial market for, infrastructure, whether it's finance, whether it's agriculture, environmental. So they use us, and we also are assisting them. Thank you.
Thank you, Alisa. All right, so we have the last storytelling here, and this is going to be Tom Miller from ClearForce.
Hi. All right, so I think I'm the closing act here. My name's Tom Miller, and I'm the CEO of ClearForce. CEO of ClearForce, which is an analytic technology company based out of Tysons Corner, Virginia. And we're a human capital risk management business. We're a people risk business, working with companies both in the public and private sector. So, as most of you in the room would probably agree, people are going to be the most important asset of all organizations, but the behaviors of certain individuals create risk to the organization, to customers, to colleagues. Certainly in the cybersecurity realm, employees account for in some way being involved in over half of the cyber breaches that occur. And so what ClearForce is doing is combining machine learning and compliance and workflow automation in order to go solve these big people risk problems. In the area of cybersecurity, we focus on insider threat. And we're helping organizations to identify early indications that an employee may be struggling, that they may be under severe pressure and stress, and as a result of that, bad things can happen. So they can become a distracted worker who's been trained not to click on the links and open documents and have bad cyber hygiene, but they're under pressure and are making mistakes which inadvertently create a ton of organizational risk. Or in today's world, the ever more sophisticated targeting through LinkedIn and other means based on their level of access and their position within the organization and the risk that the company represents. And certainly there is a percent of individuals who may be criminals inside the organization itself, but again, most of the risk that exists on this insider threat scene is distracted workers and individuals that simply don't have their head in the game. And so we're working with organizations using data and technology so that they can discover that risk more quickly and mitigate the risk. So we built a SaaS technology platform that allows for real-time alerting of behavioral risk that we often find in financial, criminal, social media information from outside the organization, as well as increasing the level of internally reported incidents by employees. Maybe most importantly, what we've done is built a privacy and legal compliant application so that employers can consistently and compliantly take action when they believe the risk may occur. And so this helps them to eliminate bias and discrimination, to be able to implement fair and consistent policy that when they're evaluating, investigating, and verifying information. And so the decision-making process, again, is going to be more compliant, whether they're using regulated or governed information as a consumer report or through FCRA, whether they're evaluating public record information. They're able to use one single platform. And it gives a centralized environment for anybody who has authority to execute policy on people risk. HR, security, compliance, and legal all have a single centralized environment in order to evaluate the information and take actions. And so today we're working with, in both the public and private sector. So we work with the Department of Defense and DHS. We work with commercial critical infrastructure providers in financial services, energy, utility, transportation, healthcare services as an example, to protect these organizations from insider threat and potential employee issues. Thank you.
Question. You've got a great variety of ways of determining employees that may potentially cause trouble for the corporation. One area I'm particularly interested in, a question for you is, do you have a system for looking at the honesty of employees?
The honesty?
The honesty. Like, is an employee an honest person? Is there one of your systems that perhaps touches on that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, I think it highlights another point, actually, which is all of the monitoring and any of the activity through our system is all employee consent based, right? And so I think this is not a surveillance application. So we're not spying on employees or trying to find negative information on individuals. Our customers are using it more akin to an ongoing background check, where they have certain policies or they have certain compliance that they need to adhere to. And so they specify those alerts that come into the platform. So we would tend to complement other technology that's doing, let's say, productivity monitoring or internal cybersecurity monitoring, but we wouldn't be hitting on that directly. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Tom, and thanks everyone for sharing your side of the story. I think we looked at both equations, the securing innovation and innovation and security, like 3 stories from each side, and each of them need attention of the other. I think that's the tension that we're kind of leading with right now. What I would like to do is next kind of close this out and welcome Mr. Mike Clark to share his thoughts about what his observation were and how these two can probably coexist. He has a big talk tomorrow as well, but I think this will be a good start for that, or teeing off. So thank you, sir.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. So I'm a little bit different. I'm not selling anything. I'm actually, I guess you could say I'm buying. Right, so I represent U.S. Cyber Command. I'm the Director of Acquisition and Technology there. So I thought I'd start a little bit by explaining about what is U.S. Cyber Command, who we are, what's our mission, then a little bit of what my role is in the organization, the sort of things that I'm very interested in. And then, since this is about innovation, I'll talk a little bit about how Cyber Command is trying to drive innovation as it applies to cyberspace operations from a military perspective, what we're doing. So Cyber Command is one of 11 combatant commands. So the DoD organizes itself around conducting warfare around combatant commands. We're one of 11. We're not the newest anymore. We were. Now U.S. Space Command, who is the Joint Force Commander for conducting space operations. General Nakasone, my boss, is the commander of U.S. Cyber Command, who is responsible for the mission that we have is conducting global cyberspace operations in the furtherance and the defense of U.S. national interests in partnership with allies, industry, academia, across the spectrum of conflict. You know, we're one of the few combatant commands that don't just prepare for war, we're in war every day. Right? You hear about cyberspace operations and nations that are conducting attacks against the United States. Well, it's our job. One of our principal missions is to defend the nation from a strategic cyberspace attack. Every day we have forces on net posturing to prevent an adversary from conducting an attack against the United States that could be catastrophic in some way. Probably the most important mission that we have as a nation. Today, we are working with part of the interagency into defending our elections that are about to happen in November. So we work with DHS and we work with FBI. Our job is to posture with military capabilities to defeat a potential attack against our elections. The most important mission that we have. Other 2 missions we have is that the DoD probably has the largest military networks in the world. The number of users, the number of endpoints, 3 million individuals with devices. So our job at Cyber Command is to direct the security and defense of those networks day to day. So we have an organization, Joint Force Headquarters DoDN, who every day is responsible for directing the cybersecurity and defense of all DoD networks, because every other military operation in the DoD is dependent on those networks. So we have to make sure that we mission assured that those networks are there. And then lastly, one of our other 3rd missions is posturing to provide joint force warfighting capabilities to the other combatant commands when we go to war. So if you think in terms of air power, land power, sea power, if we were to go to war, we're responsible for providing the other combatant commands the cyber war making capability. That's our job, what we're responsible for doing. We have a cyber operations forces. We have 133 teams that are manned, trained, and equipped that represent about 7,000 individuals that every day are posturing to defend the nation, defend the DoDN, and then posture to conduct warfighting activities in support of another combatant command every day. My job is to give them the capabilities they need to be successful. So one of the new things about Cyber Command, most other combatant commands only direct the forces that the other military services they give them. For example, European Command. European Command has Navy forces, Air forces, Army forces, and the Army, Navy, and the Air Force are responsible for provisioning those forces with capabilities. Cyber is a little bit different. There is some of that done by the service, but the preponderance of the capabilities that are provisioned to the cyber operations forces are under General Nakasone, because he has the authority also to provision the warfighting forces. It's literally, so the only other example in the DoD is Special Operations Command. So Special Operations Command has the same responsibilities in that they develop unique Special Operations Forces capabilities to make the SOF effective. We're responsible for doing that for the Cyberspace Operations Forces as well. So that's my job. I either buy, I build, or I borrow capabilities to ensure that the forces that General Nakasone has under his command can conduct the operations they need to conduct when asked to conduct those operations. My principal focus is on what we call the JICWA, the Joint Cyber Warfighting Architecture. So think of it this way. Does everybody know what an aircraft carrier looks like, what an aircraft carrier does? Right? Launches airplanes. It's got a training crew. It's got a command and control function. It's got maintenance crews. It's got networks. So I'm responsible for provisioning the JICWA, which is the cyber aircraft carrier. Effectively what that is. It's our warfighting platform. It's the platform from which we train our forces, we build capabilities, DevSecOps environment to build capabilities, we test them, conduct operations from the platform, get sensor data, whether it's commercial data or other sensor data within our networks or other sensors that we have. We do all of our intelligence and data analytics on it. We do command and control from it, and underlying all of it is what we call the unified platform, which is the data fabric, is our data fabric. It's our data lake, or I should say data ocean, as big as it is today, as much data is in it. So that's my principal responsibility, is provisioning the forces and provisioning the capabilities. I need innovation. It's one of the key challenges we had. And what am I talking about here is, if you think about the operational environment today, 4 or 5 years ago, it was probably months to a year before we would see a 0-day turned around and thrown against the DoD network, right? We had time to prepare. We had time to figure out how to get the signatures out. We had time to be able to do the mitigations. We no longer have the time. Today, what we're seeing is within hours, that once a vulnerability is identified, that our adversaries are able to weaponize it and throw it against us almost immediately. So how do we begin developing the technology that isn't just responsive, but becomes predictive in our way of understanding what the enemy is going to do against us? That's innovation space we need. You hear the buzzwords, AI, ML, big data, analytics. It's the practical application of those technologies, just not the theory of them. What I'm trying to drive through an innovation space is don't give me the buzzwords. Show me how you're practically going to innovate using those technologies to solve a problem that I have. I have challenges from defending DoD networks. I have challenges from being able to posture to create warfighting effects against our enemies. I have challenges from defending the nation from a cyberspace. And you can imagine all the space there in terms of the capabilities we would need, and I need innovation in that space. So how am I driving innovation? Couple ways. We have, twice this year, we have held Industry Day events. I'm at Fort Meade outside of Baltimore is where our organization is. We held 2 industry days. One of them was at the unclassified level. It was both a virtual and a live event that we held at our Dreamport facility there, and I'll talk more about Dreamport in a minute, where we spent the entire day going into detail into exactly what our tech challenges was to industry, and then offered the opportunities to come back to us with solicitations on meeting our challenges. I also held it at the classified level. So we had an event for contractors that have classified ability to have clearances. We also got into even more detail about what our challenges are, because we can talk about it at the classified level. I'm going to do that every year. I'm about to put out a broad area announcement where it'll be a continuous solicitation of innovation needs. We will have out there continuously, here's what Cyber Command needs, and we will be updating it continuously in terms of the challenges and the capabilities we need so that we can solicit requests for proposals continuously to do that. On our website, www.cybercommand.mil, there's a link there that you can go to, partnerships and business, and you can send me your statement of capability. On the website also is the unclassified version of our tech challenges. So if you can go out there and look at the tech challenges, all the technology and the capabilities I'm looking for on our website, and then there's a way for you to submit a capability proposal to us that gets evaluated. We're looking for technology to help us. I mentioned Dreamport. Dreamport is probably the most successful capability the command's done in this space. So it's a partnership intermediary agreement with the Maryland Innovation and Security Institute. It's a nonprofit organization, a 501(c)(3) funded by the state of Maryland, that we entered into a partnership agreement with them where they can, on our behalf, they understand what our needs are, is a non-traditional way of going out and finding solutions for the command. We have the Dreamport facility that they operate for us, which is we bring in and to do demonstrations of technology. We have runoffs of technology where small businesses come in and demonstrate their capabilities to us. We also very much are driving the academic engagement as well through that with universities where we're trying to find ways of funding research, not just buying things, but also drive the research as well. One of the reasons I'm down here today is you have the UTSA NSCC. That's a possible organization that we're looking at maybe doing a partnership with them as well, where I could drive innovation needs through that organization also. It's one of the key things with Guy Walsh that I'm working with to look at how we might be able to do that. So I'm the last one. Let me leave you with this. U.S. Cyber Command is here to defend the nation on your behalf. We need your help to drive innovation with the capabilities in order to be able to be successful at that. So our website, www.cybercom.mil. If you got a capability you think the nation needs, reach out to me, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Hey. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mike, it was great. I know there's a lot to share in terms of stories, the work that is being done. I think tomorrow is going to be another day where we expand upon that. But what a day! It just passed so fast. With we build the set of ideas. Tomorrow we'll work on the action plan, and tomorrow we have a bit early start. We will be here. The team will be here 7:30. We kick off at 8:30. I just got a note from our friends in Ukraine that they've got air sirens, they've got power outages, but they will do their best to come join us at 8:35 in the morning. So please be with us, and those that are you're working with, let them know to tune in and join. We are also doing a recording of a preemptive recording for the Ukrainian leaders that were supposed to speak on Friday live, just in case, we want to make sure that their voice is heard and listened. So we'll have that tomorrow. Tonight, I thank you for sticking around for so long. For us, this was a pretty long day for us. Tomorrow, hopefully, we'll start early, we'll end early, and we'll see you again, bright and early. So thank you. The bus would be there if for those that are taking a shuttle back to the hotel. It's there and ready to pick you up. And for those that are riding back, have a safe trip back. And be ready. Tomorrow evening is also a little bit busy day in the town. The day of the day parade is there. I think today is probably a light traffic, but should get you back to your home or hotel, wherever you're going, safely back. So thank you again. Thanks for kicking us off today. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Hey, thank you.